The elevator door slid open with a soft chime, revealing a hallway that pulsed with the kind of energy only fear could generate. High heels clicked across marble. Perfume lingered in the air like expensive promises. 50 women in designer suits sat rigid in leather chairs, clutching portfolios and faking smiles like their careers depended on it. Because they did. CEO Elias Cade was conducting his quarterly image audit. A ruthless ritual known among employees as the purge. If you were too loud, too fake, too desperate, too fashionable, too late, you were gone. In a shadowed corner near the refreshment table stood Sophia Hahn, 18 years old, shoulder-length hair pinned in a crooked bun, wearing a faded blue cardigan and black flats that had lost their shine 2 internships ago. She wasn't part of the audit. She was here to refill the coffee. But fate never asked for permission. "Elias is on his way down," someone whispered. Immediately, the room straightened, as if the air itself had snapped into alignment. Sophia quietly stirred the sugar cubes in the coffee pot, trying to stay invisible. She'd learned it was the safest place to be. Then, screams. Gasps. Phones vibrating violently. Everyone turned toward the screen mounted on the wall. It was a live feed of the Alina Beauty launch, their company's flagship product. The campaign had cost millions. It was being streamed across multiple platforms. And now it was on fire. Literally. On screen, a faulty product sparked, burning through a celebrity's silk dress during a live demo. The model screamed. Cameras kept rolling. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Alina fail. Hashtag luxury burned. Hashtag oh should be fired. Someone in the room dropped their coffee. Then came the voice.
Low. Calm.
Lethal. Who's responsible for this? Elias Cade had entered. He looked like he'd stepped off the cover of a billionaire scandal magazine. Black tailored suit. No tie. No expression. Just a presence that made the air colder. Everyone stood. Everyone. Except Sophia. She had coffee on her blouse. And her hands were shaking. He glanced around. I said, "Who authorized that batch?" Silence. An exec in red heels stepped forward. The files were uploaded by someone on the development team. An intern, I believe. Eyes swiveled toward Sophia. Of course. The quiet one. The one no one would defend. Name. Elias demanded. Sophia, someone muttered. She's just a tech assistant. Barely on the payroll. He turned his gaze on her. Like a knife, slicing through fog. Sophia felt her heart race, but something inside her, something old and tired of being stepped on, snapped. She stood slowly. And spoke. That's a lie. Gasps rippled. Elias tilted his head. Excuse me? Sophia met his eyes. Her voice was soft, but steady. I didn't upload those files. I flagged the batch as unstable 3 days ago. I sent 2 emails. I have the timestamps. The red-heeled exec flushed. You never told me. I did. You ignored it. Murmurs exploded behind her. Sophia reached into her canvas bag and pulled out a printed copy of the flagged report. I knew you'd delete the evidence. She placed it gently on the table in front of Elias. He didn't blink. He read it, then looked up. Security, he said flatly. Escort her out. Sophia froze. Wait, you're firing me, she said, stunned. He raised a brow, then pointed. At the woman in red heels. Her, he said. Not you. The woman sputtered. But she's an intern. Elias didn't respond. He simply turned to Sophia. And nodded. You. My office.
Tomorrow.
8 a.m. Then he walked out. The room exploded after he left. Some glared. Some whispered. Some stared like she was a ghost. Sophia didn't care. For the first time in her life, she hadn't been quiet. And it changed everything. Later that night, Sophia sat on the edge of her bed, holding the badge she thought she'd lose today. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You spoke your mind. You're the only one who did. EK. She stared at the screen, then typed back. And if I hadn't, you'd have been number 51. Her hands trembled. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was the thrill of finally being seen. The lobby of Cade International was a steel and glass monument to perfection. But at exactly 7:58 a.m., the revolving doors creaked open to reveal a girl in a navy thrift store coat, gripping a worn canvas bag like a lifeline. Sophia Hahn had never stepped foot on the 51st floor. Not until now. Her ID badge trembled in her hand as she tapped it against the elevator scanner. No one smiled. No one greeted her. People in suits passed by like she was part of the wall. Forgotten. Except she wasn't forgotten anymore. He had called her up, and she wasn't sure if it was a promotion or an ambush. 8 a.m. sharp. The glass doors to Elias Cade's private office swung open silently. Sophia stepped in, heart racing. He stood at the far end, back turned, staring out over the skyline like a man contemplating the fall of empires. "You're early," he said without looking. "You said 8, she replied.
He turned.
Eyes sharp. Dark suit perfectly fitted. No smile. Just unreadable calculation. And for a moment nothing moved. Not the air. Not her breath. "Sit." Sophia obeyed, sitting at the conference table that felt too large for someone like her. He walked over, placed a thin folder in front of her, and leaned down. "That was a bold move yesterday." "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice," Elias murmured, voice low. "You just didn't flinch. Everyone else lied. You didn't." She met his eyes. "I wasn't trying to impress you." "Good," he said softly. "That's why I noticed." The next few hours were brutal. He quizzed her on systems, project timelines, and crisis strategies she'd never even trained for. Sophia fumbled. He didn't help. When she got one answer wrong, he tapped his pen twice. Not angry, just registering it. Like data. But when she got an answer right, his brow lifted just slightly. A flicker of respect. And she felt it, a shift. She wasn't the coffee girl anymore. By noon, she was assigned as his executive apprentice. A full promotion. Office access. Pay bump. Shadowing the CEO himself. It was insane. Whispers spread like fire. "She's the girl who got Red Heels fired. She must have slept with someone. She's not even pretty, just quiet." By the end of the week, Sophia was neck-deep in corporate war. PowerPoints. Investor calls. Back-to-back crises. But she learned fast. And Elias? He didn't hover. He observed. One afternoon, while reviewing an investor memo in the conference room, Elias leaned over and said, "You speak clearly, but only when cornered." "Why?" Sophia froze. "Because if I speak when I'm not cornered, people stop listening." He paused. Then, almost to himself, "I used to feel that way too." It was the first personal thing he'd said. The first crack in the ice. Then came Friday. Elias summoned the executive board. Sophia, tucked in the corner with her notepad, was supposed to just observe. But when a senior director pitched a campaign with falsified metrics, again, she instinctively stood up. "Those figures aren't accurate." The room turned. Again. The air grew cold. Elias looked at her. A long, unreadable stare. "Come here," he said. She stepped forward. "Explain." With trembling fingers, she pulled the original numbers from her file. "I double-checked the source data this morning. These projections are inflated by nearly 30%.
Gasps.
Silence. The director began to stammer. "She's just a—" Elias cut in, voice smooth as blade. "She's the reason your last failure didn't tank our stock. You're dismissed." Just like that. Another executive, gone. And Sophia? She stood there, chest tight, heart pounding. But Elias didn't dismiss her. Instead, he turned to her and said in front of them all, "From now on, all board memos go through her first." That night, Sophia didn't sleep. Because something had shifted again. Not just in her role, but in the way Elias looked at her. Like she was becoming something even he hadn't expected. And it terrified her. Because behind the steel of his gaze, she swore she saw a flicker of warmth. Or worse, interest. Cliffhanger ending. Sophia returned to her desk Monday morning and found a note folded neatly under her keyboard. No name. Just 3 words. You don't flinch. Her hands shook, not from fear, but because she didn't know whether to run or write back. The elevator ride to the 51st floor was silent, except for the pounding in Sophia's chest. For days, she'd carried that anonymous note. You don't flinch. But she had flinched. She flinched every time she caught Elias Cade watching her from across the boardroom. Not professionally, not coldly, but like she was a problem he couldn't solve and didn't want to. That morning, she found her desk moved. Not down the hall, not to a cubicle, to the corner of Elias's personal executive suite. A single chair, a laptop, a view of the city. No announcement, no explanation, just a quiet relocation. Like he was drawing her closer and testing what she'd do. She stood frozen at the door. Problem. Elias's voice cut through the glass wall like silk over steel. She turned. This isn't my desk. He barely looked up from his phone. It is now. Sophia inhaled. People will talk. They already are. That should have scared her. But instead, it felt like the air between them had thickened. Like silence itself was charged. The following days were worse. Or better. Or both. Elias began involving her in confidential decisions. Late-night budget calls. Product failures no one else saw. He'd pace while she scribbled notes, occasionally asking, "What would you do?" Sophia started answering. Boldly. Without filter. And he started listening. She noticed the way he stopped interrupting her mid-sentence. The way he'd pause, waiting for her reaction to new strategies. The way he only ever smiled when she challenged him, and was right. Thursday night, 9:42 p.m. Everyone else had left. Sophia stood by the whiteboard, reworking a launch strategy that Elias's executive team had failed to fix all week. He leaned back in his chair, jacket off, sleeves rolled, watching her like she wasn't just solving problems. She was the solution. You enjoy proving people wrong, he said quietly. Sophia didn't turn.
No.
I enjoy doing what they said I couldn't. A pause. You're not what I expected. She glanced at him. Is that why you moved me up here? Curiosity. Elias tilted his head. Not curiosity. She waited. But he didn't finish the thought. The next morning, everything cracked. A scandal broke. One of Elias's top executives was accused of embezzling millions. The press was outside. The stock was dropping. PR was panicking. Sophia was in his office when the news hit. Phones ringing. Advisors yelling. Elias stood in the center, still as a storm's eye. He turned to her. Just her. What do I do? Sophia blinked. You're asking me? You're the only one not trying to protect their own seat. Silence. Then, with trembling fingers, she laid out a 3-step response plan. Transparent. Aggressive.
Honest.
He listened. Then, to the shock of the entire C-suite, he implemented it. All of it. And the stock stopped falling. Later that night, after the press quieted and the offices dimmed, Elias found her on the rooftop, staring at the lights below.
He didn't speak.
Just stood beside her, both of them wrapped in cold wind and something unspoken. Sophia finally whispered, I've never been important to anyone who mattered before. Elias's voice was lower than she'd ever heard. You matter more than most people I've trusted. Her breath caught. Not because of the words, but because he meant them. Cliffhanger ending. The next morning, Sophia found another note under her keyboard. This time it wasn't typed. It was handwritten. Stop trying to shrink into silence. I see everything you're becoming. EK. She folded it, pressed it to her chest, and whispered, But do I see everything you're hiding? The rain hit the tall glass windows like whispered warnings. It was Friday, nearly midnight, and the city was glowing in a storm's cold embrace. The office was empty, except for 2 people. Elias Cade stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. Still. Silent. Drenched in the moody light of the skyline. Sophia stepped in quietly, the only sound her damp boots squeaking on the marble floor. He didn't turn. You shouldn't be here this late, he said, voice low. You're still here, she replied. That made him glance back. There was something hollow in his eyes, like a man who'd seen too much, but refused to flinch. Sophia stepped closer, holding the folder he'd requested earlier, but didn't hand it over yet. Instead, she asked, "Who is the woman in that picture frame you keep hidden in your drawer?" Elias froze. Subtle. But she caught it. "I saw it by accident," she added quickly. "I wasn't snooping. She was my fiancée." Silence fell like thunder. Sophia's breath hitched. She hadn't expected him to answer. Not so directly. "She left," she whispered. He gave a sharp, joyless laugh.
No. She died.
3 years ago.
Car crash.
Drunk driver. On her way to one of my events. Sophia's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." He finally turned to face her. "Everyone said I'd changed after that. Maybe they were right. Maybe I stopped trusting people. Started testing them instead. Style over substance. Smiles over sincerity. I created a world where only the best liars survived." "And yet," Sophia said softly, "you promoted the one person who didn't lie." A long pause. "Because you reminded me what truth sounds like," he said. "I didn't realize I'd missed it." Their eyes locked. Too long. Too honest. Too dangerous. She lowered her gaze and held out the folder. "Your numbers for the board vote. They're worse than expected. You're losing support." He didn't take it. "Because I've been too distracted." She finally looked up. "By me?"
A beat.
He didn't deny it. "I should go," she said quickly, stepping back. But he stepped forward. "Sophia." His voice was different this time. Rougher. Vulnerable.
She stopped.
Rain streaked the glass behind him like tears the world couldn't hold in. "You once asked if I moved your desk out of curiosity," he murmured. She nodded slowly. "It wasn't that." His voice dropped lower. "It was fear." "Of what?" "That you disappear before I figured out why I need you here." Her heart slammed against her ribs. "I'm just an intern," she whispered.
No.
"You're the only person I can't predict." She took a step back, scared of what she was feeling, what he might say next. "Elias," she began. But the door suddenly swung open. It was Clara Lynn, Elias's longtime executive assistant, and the woman who'd always eyed Sophia like a stain on a silk tie. She froze when she saw them. Sophia flushed. Elias, too close. Clara's smile was tight, poisonous. "I see I'm interrupting." "You are," Elias said without apology. Clara's eyes narrowed slightly, but she held out a slim tablet. "Urgent message from the chairman. He's requesting an emergency review of your recent hires." Sophia stiffened. She was the most recent hire. Elias took the tablet, jaw tight. Clara didn't leave. She looked at Sophia and said, voice like glass, "You should be careful. This floor has a long memory. Girls who get too close to the fire usually burn." Sophia stared her down until Elias said sharply, "That's enough." Clara turned and left, heels clicking like a threat. Sophia turned to him. "Is she right? Am I going to get burned?" He didn't answer, just walked to his desk, placed the tablet down, and finally said, "Not if I burn the system down first." Cliffhanger ending. Sophia left the office that night shaken. And the next morning, her ID badge didn't work. Her desk was empty. Her name erased from the system.
Gone. Just like that.
Rain hammered the sidewalk as Sophia stood in front of the revolving doors of Cade International, her breath fogging in the cold air. She swiped her ID again. Red light. Access denied. A tight knot twisted in her stomach.
Her name was gone from the system.
Her desk cleared. Her login wiped. Like she never existed. She hadn't even received a termination notice. Just silence. She glanced up at the building, 51 floors of power and polished deception. And somewhere up there, Elias knew. He had to. Inside, security finally approached. "Miss, you've been removed from the employee database. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Sophia straightened. "I need to speak to Elias Cade." The guard's expression didn't change. "He's in meetings all day." "I'll wait, Miss Hahn." But Sophia had already moved to the bench outside the entrance, soaked by rain but unmoving. Hours passed. Executives walked by, pretending not to see her. One even snapped a photo. By the time the city lights flickered on, she was shivering, still waiting. That's when a black car pulled up. The back window rolled down, just enough to reveal Clara Lynn. The serpentine pearls. You should go home, Clara said smoothly. You had your moment. Now it's over. Sophia stepped forward, rain dripping from her chin.
Why?
Why now? What did I do? Clara smiled tightly. You made him soft. That's dangerous for a man like Elias. You mean you felt threatened? Sophia snapped. Clara's eyes narrowed. Sweetheart, you were a phase. A distraction. He might have liked your innocence, but this world doesn't reward girls who don't know how to play the game. And yet, Sophia whispered, I was the only one who ever won his respect without faking a thing. That wiped the smile off Clara's face. The window rolled up, and the car disappeared. That night, Sophia sat in her tiny apartment, staring at her phone, every second hoping his name would light up the screen. Nothing. No calls. No messages. Just that ache in her chest, the betrayal of being seen, then erased. She opened her drawer and pulled out the last note Elias had left her. I see everything you're becoming.
EK.
She nearly tore it apart, but couldn't, because something didn't feel right. This wasn't him. The next day, she made a choice. She dressed in the same outfit she wore when he first noticed her. Simple sweater, worn shoes, no mask. Then she walked into the annual shareholder meeting. Uninvited. Unwelcome. Unafraid. Security tried to stop her at the door. She didn't budge. I'm Sophia Hahn, she said loud enough for the crowd to turn. If Mr. Cade wants me gone, he can tell me himself. A murmur spread through the crowd. Flashes. Whispers. The chaos drew the board's attention, until Elias himself stepped forward from the side doors, eyes dark and unreadable. He met her gaze across the ballroom floor. His jaw clenched. Sophia, he said, voice low. You shouldn't be here. Then why haven't you said it to me? She shot back.
Gasps.
She stepped toward him. I deserve to know why I was fired without warning, without a word, after everything I did for you. The crowd held its breath. Elias looked at her like he was at war with himself. Finally, he spoke. I didn't fire you. The words struck like lightning. What? She whispered. I didn't remove you from the system. I didn't sign a termination. Then who did? He turned slowly, toward Clara, who stood pale-faced near the board table. The chairman raised an eyebrow. Ms. Lynn submitted the paperwork. Said it was your directive, Elias. His voice dropped. I never signed off. Sophia's hands trembled. Clara opened her mouth, then shut it. It was over. And suddenly everything made sense. The missing files. The whispers. The blocked calls. She had been removed not by accident, but by sabotage. By the woman who feared what Elias was becoming. A man with a heart. Elias stepped closer. I wanted to protect you, he said softly. But I should have trusted you to stand beside me, not behind me. Tears pricked her eyes. I would have faced it all, if you just let me. He reached out, slowly, like touching her might break something sacred. And then, their hands met. But before anything more could happen, the lights in the ballroom cut out. A scream echoed. Then another. Security scrambled. A voice blared over the loudspeaker. This company will fall tonight, starting with its king. Sophia turned sharply to Elias. He stared at the darkness. Eyes narrowed, jaw set, not with fear, but rage. A blackout in the middle of a shareholders' meeting was more than a glitch. It was a declaration. The ballroom descended into chaos, gasps, phones lighting up, security scrambling to the exits. Sophia stood frozen beside Elias, heart pounding like a drumbeat inside her chest. A voice had echoed through the sound system. This company will fall tonight, starting with its king. And Elias Cade wasn't moving. He was scanning the shadows like a predator. Elias, Sophia whispered. This is an attack. He didn't answer, just grabbed her hand, tight, urgent, and pulled her through the side door of the ballroom. They dashed down a service hallway, the emergency lights flickering red. Sophia could barely keep up. "Where are we going?" "To the control room," he said grimly. "If they've taken the power from there, this isn't just corporate sabotage. Someone's trying to send a message." "Who would?" Elias turned suddenly, stopping short in front of the door. "Only someone who knows the system inside out. Someone on the inside." The control room was locked, but Elias punched in an override code. The door hissed open. Monitors were dark. Wires cut. A single note was left on the desk, scrawled in red ink. "When you trust a child, the kingdom crumbles." Sophia stared at it. Her stomach dropped. She whispered, "This is about me." "No," Elias turned to her, eyes fierce.
"This is about me.
"And the people who can't stand that I trusted you more than them." For a moment, the air between them was heavy with something unspoken. Then Sophia stepped closer. "Then let's fight them back. Together." 15 minutes later, power returned to the ballroom. The lights blinked on. The room was rattled, but whole. Elias reappeared with Sophia beside him, walking straight to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice calm but iron-edged. "Someone attempted to hijack tonight's meeting. Not just with wires and threats, but with fear." He turned, locking eyes with every board member. "And I don't respond to fear. I respond with truth." He stepped back, and to everyone's shock, motioned for Sophia to take the mic.
Gasps.
Eyes widened. "Her?" She hesitated only a second, then stepped up. She didn't need a script. She had truth. "I'm not what you expect," she said. "I'm young. I'm quiet. I don't wear designer clothes or know how to play power games." A murmur rippled through the room. "But I saw what none of you did. This company wasn't falling because of outsiders. It was bleeding from the inside. Ego, lies, favoritism." She glanced back at Elias, then forward. "And this man, this CEO, chose to see through it. He took a risk on someone who had no image, no agenda, no title." Her voice didn't shake now. "And, because of that, I will fight for this company. I will protect its truth. And if that threatens the ones who used to pull the strings."
She paused.
Then smiled.
"Good."
The crowd erupted.
Stunned.
Then slowly, respectfully, they applauded. Even the chairman nodded. Later that night, in the quiet glow of the rooftop office, Elias poured 2 glasses of scotch and handed one to Sophia, though she didn't take it. "I don't drink," she said softly. "Right." He set it aside. Old habit. They stood in silence for a long while, watching the city rebuild its pulse after the blackout. "Why me?" she finally asked. "Why did you pick me?" He looked at her, really looked. "Because I built a world where everyone wore masks. And you were the only person who never needed one." Sophia's throat tightened. "And what now?" she whispered. "What happens next?" Elias stepped forward.
Slow. Certain.
"The board wants me to take a leave. They think I'm compromised." Her heart sank. "Because of me?" "No," he said. "Because I started caring again." He reached for her hand. "I'm walking away from everything I built, unless you tell me to stay." Tears filled her eyes. "What do you want?" He took her hand, pressing it gently to his chest. "You." Cliffhanger ending. Just as their fingers intertwined, Sophia's phone buzzed with a single unknown message. "You think you've won. But I'm not finished yet. CL. Clara." Still in the shadows. Still playing her game.
And now?
The war wasn't over. It was just beginning.